The price of freedom is death. We're coming to get our check.
Black first, brothers and sisters, welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I am your host, Afro Elite. Before we get started, please make sure you guys are subscribed by hitting that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that way you do not miss out on any future content. Also, leave a like and share this on your various social media platforms or to a family member or friend, because that helps the reach and the growth of the channel. We're growing this channel at an incredibly steady, that's important, and fast, that's also important, rate. So thank you guys for everything that you guys do as far as liking, commenting, subscribing, all of that stuff. Okay, we got people in the chat room already ready for this one. It's going to be a good one. Derek says, can't wait, brother, B1. Yes, okay. Shout out to our brother Derek. DSA, Heat, St. Cloud, War with us, B1. B1 to everybody in here. Some, hold on. Say Donin Show, B1 family. B1 to what's this? A critic Cedric Stansfield. Okay. Coach, B1 to you. Our sister, darling Kiki is in here. Black Light Revelations. I saw you, brother. I saw you in on that your other, I forgot the name of your other channel that you was on, but I was able to catch the last second of it. Shout out to him. Shout out to our brother Iron Will and everybody who's in here. Okay. Now, we know that we're getting closer and closer day by day to reparations. We understand that. And the dominant society is very upset with this. Not only are the dominant society upset, we're starting to see a lot of other people become upset. It used to be where we were the only ones talking about reparations and everybody else was gaslighting us. Everybody else was saying, oh, there's no way you guys would possibly ever get reparations. Don't even think about it. Shout out to our brother Torian. I just finished watching his video. I think it's going to be very interesting what I have to say with this, because they're crying big crocodile tears when it comes to this. But one of the things that we're seeing is people not hating, and Black Alpha, shout out to him, he was talking about that. A lot of people who are in opposition to us as foundational Black Americans getting our reparations, those people are not directly saying, hey, I don't want you guys to get reparations. These people are saying, hey, I want you guys to get reparations, but we should get reparations too, or everybody should get reparations, or how would it work only you guys getting reparations? See, the thing is that all of the excuses, and this is how you know it's bad faith, all of the excuses that they make about, man, where's the money gonna come from? The country's already in debt, you know, it's gonna destroy the economy, we're too broke for that. All of the financial questions that they have when we say that we demand reparations, that goes completely out the window when it's not exclusive to foundational Black Americans. If we include anybody, just keep this in mind, if we include anybody else when it comes to reparations, if it was Black and it was Black and brown, for instance, for example, right, they would have much less of an issue with that. If it was Black and Asians, much less of an issue. If it was poor people, much less of an issue. You still would have your, you know, MAGA idiots out there saying something about it, but it's the fact that we as foundational Black Americans are the only people who qualify to get the reparations. That's the part that is really frustrating them, because we're gatekeeping it so well that nobody else is able to wiggle their way through it. I'm gonna play you this one clip, okay? And we're starting to see this come from the Tether class. Let me show you this. And this is going to prelude pretty well into what we're going to be discussing later on in the broadcast.
Talk about reparations. Let me tell you why I'm mad. Because not being Black American, but being Caribbean American, meaning my dad was born here, but his family's born in Haiti. My mother was born in Trinidad. We're still descendants of slaves. Anybody that is in the Caribbean, for the most part, specifically Haiti, let's give it up for Haiti, because
Now, here's the thing. She says, we're still descendants of slaves. Okay, that's great. We have to understand you're descendants of slaves, but the people who enslaved you was not America. America never enslaved. Now they assisted. Let's not get it twisted. They assisted heavily when it came to the enslavement of the Haitians, and that's wrong. But they're not the people who enslaved them. It was the French who did that. But yet they're not sitting up there talking about slavery against the French. So they're talking about America should pay every body who was a descendant of slaves. No. You might be a descendant of a slave in the world, but you're not a foundational Black American. That's the key point. Okay. You're not a descendant of a slave in this country that you're asking reparations for. That's why we, as foundational Black Americans, we can't go to France or Spain. Somebody in the chat, France, Spain, or Britain. We can't go to Europe and talk about, I'm a descendant of a slave, you got to pay me. France, you got to pay me. We don't have that right? Which is why you guys don't allow us to be in CARICOM. I was about to say Comic-Con. Now, check this out. Let me play it back a little bit.
For Haiti, because if Haiti didn't run it up, if we wasn't doing the machete chopping and all of that, nobody else would have really felt let's do this. But I digress.
Now, see, that's not true. That's not true at all. Now, this is no disrespect to what they had going on in Haiti and the Haitian Revolution. That's cool. That's absolutely cool. Now, let me take this off for a little bit. Let me take this off. Do you guys see? I'm gonna take this completely off so you guys can see it. Y'all see that number right there, 1526? Y'all see that number? That's when the Europeans, the Spanish specifically, were bringing over their slaves, their Black slaves, to the country that is known as America, to the Americas, and they were fought off. Okay, they were fought off by people like our brother John Horse, right? Not John Horse. I'm thinking of somebody else. But they were fought off when they came here the first time. Okay, we've been fighting off slavery technically since the 1500s. Now, what they did is in the 1804, which came centuries later, but technically foundational Black Americans, because those are the people who would stay on this land and would become foundational Black Americans. So those are pretty much the ancestors of foundational Black Americans. We've been fighting off slavery well before that Haitian Revolution. Okay. And even if we say that's not true, even if we say that has nothing to do with it, what happened in Haiti had absolutely nothing to do with anything that was going on in America. That didn't, what they did in Haiti, all due respect to them, no disrespect at all, that did not 1% benefit what happened in America. It's not like we knew about, they just freed themselves from slavery in Haiti, maybe we can free ourselves. That's not what was going on. There was slave rebellions. There was so many different slave rebellions in the 1700s, way before in America, way before what happened in Haiti in 1804. So they're sitting up there trying to make it seem like we, as Haitians, we got the morale from them. We got the motivation from them. We got the motivation from Haitians. That's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. But let me continue playing it. We're almost done. And then we're going to get to the bigger thing.
I digress. France ain't paying Haitian people because technically Haiti owes France for just wanting their freedom. The Brits ain't paying Trinidad either. So what about Caribbean Americans?
Now, here's the thing. As right as she is, I can take her because the video's done. As right as she is, France ain't trying to pay nobody, and the Brits ain't trying to pay nobody. That's y'all problem. Y'all problem is with them. Y'all problem is not with America to the degree it is with France and to the degree it is with Britain. So y'all looking at the situation like, hey, damn, they ain't trying to pay us, so let's just get in on what y'all got going on. No, that don't work. That don't work. They ain't trying to pay y'all because y'all not making them pay y'all. To be totally honest, they're not trying to pay us as foundational Black Americans. We're forcing their hand and putting them in a position to where they have to pay. We're not accepting no for an answer. That's the difference between FBA and France. I mean, in Haitians, that's the real difference, is because we understand that they're not trying to pay. We understand that they don't want to pay. And we're saying we don't care that you don't want to pay. It doesn't matter that you don't want to pay. You're still going to have to cut the check. What she's saying is, oh, well, they said no. So what do you guys got going on? That's not how this works. That's not how that works, because it doesn't work the other way around. Because when they talk about CARICOM, and they talk about getting because there is a movement, and I'm not hating on it. There is a movement for them to get reparations. We're not included in that, mind you. We're not included in that. But in the movement that they're talking about getting reparations and everything like that, you don't see us trying to come in there and be all, hey, America's not trying to pay us, so we're just going to be beneficiaries of you getting your reparations from friends. No, that's not how that works. That's not how that works at all. So instead of them hating on reparations, I'm telling you, you see, the problem is the fact that they're mad that reparations is exclusive to us. If everybody and their mama was getting reparations, anybody who Black is getting reparations, they would have no problem. All of the we were never slaves, you don't deserve reparations. All of that stuff is because they're mad they can't get it. That's the only reason. If this was everybody who's Black, everybody who's from the motherland, from Africa, you all come to America and get reparations, I promise you they would have no issue. And shout out to the $10 super sticker from our beloved sister Q2Wise. Thank you very much for your support. I appreciate that. Appreciate you. Now, let me get to the other clip, the main clip. And shout out to the person who sent this to me on Twitter. I appreciate you, brother. Let me get this off the thing, because I don't need that anymore. So check this out. This is I guess a YouTube channel who's ran by some girl who's, I guess, a mulatto to a degree. She's not even, I don't know if she's even like a full mulatto, but she's Italian, because she says that all the time. She's Italian. I've checked out her other videos, and she's constantly claiming that, she's Italian. But now in this video, she's claiming that she is Black, and she has this Black guy. I'm not sure where that's this dude. She has this Black guy on here, not sure what his background is, and not sure about him, but she has him on here, and they're giving a bunch of bad faith talking points about foundational Black Americans reparations. But let's get started. But before we do that, hold on. Let's make sure we get everything straight, and let's play the copyright video. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All right, here we go.
So even if you are living as white, does that somehow negate your African ancestors that were enslaved? It's very odd.
Are reparations about being Black in America, or are they about having enslaved ancestors? And what if you're one or not the other? My name is Danielle Romero, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today on the channel. We're going to talk about reparations in America. And you may be wondering, well, what does that have to do with genealogy and ancestry? Well, it actually has a lot to do, because you need to be a proven lineal descent of an enslaved person in the United States to be eligible for reparations. So this is definitely a genealogy problem, right? A lot of gray area here. In particular, there's people like me who've been, as some articles say, living as white, who would technically be eligible for reparations if we are talking about lineal descent to enslaved ancestors.
Now, okay, This woman, and she did the air quotes, oh, living as white. They say I would be living as white. They're not saying you would be living as white because of that. They're saying you'd be living as white because she identifies as white. Okay. That's why she identifies as white, and then she says technically I would be eligible for reparations because I have that percentage. So so you get the energy she's coming from. This person identifies as white. In her other videos that I've checked out myself, I've heard her say this out of her own mouth. In her other videos, she talks about how her family came here in the early 1900s and she's Italian. Her family is from the she's a white Italian, and she's mixed with a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, she's not black. She does not identify as black. She does not live like a black person. Society does not treat her as black. She's not black on any paperwork. But now she's going to sit up there. My great grandmother's auntie was black. So technically, if you want to think about it, that's the type of energy she's on. Oh.
But they're not okay with that. And just to be clear, reparations are not on my radar as something that I'm looking to cash in on. Today, I'll be having a conversation with my friend and Creole cousin, Mark Lewis, on a dig in. Who's eligible for reparations and should we even have them? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm really curious about this issue because I can actually see both sides of this idea of restorative justice. But man, there are a lot of pitfalls. So let's dive in.
Hi, I am Mark Lewis. I'm the host of Creole Explained on YouTube. It's also on Spotify. I've also been working in genealogy for a couple of years. So my podcast and YouTube channel deals with all of that, like genealogy, linguistics, with a focus on Creole history and the Creole diaspora.
Reparations in America. I think the first question is, well, why is this relevant for a student of genealogy? Because we're both kind of in the genealogy circle.
For reparations, what I've heard and what I've read about it, it essentially, for it to work and how people are trying to administer it, you need to essentially do genealogy, right? Because a lot of people who are in favor of reparations, they want reparations for anyone, not just anyone who has African ancestry, but anyone, because, you know, this is a US thing. They want it to be anyone who has ancestors who were enslaved in the US. So that becomes a problem where it's like, okay, well, slavery ended like over 100 years ago. We can't act like, you know, people around like, hey, were you enslaved? So now we have to go through like a grapevine and find out, like, some people honestly have recent ancestry and they don't know about it. I've seen people who have an ancestor who came over from maybe the Caribbean in the late 1800s or early 1900s. And so they're actually maybe not from this country or a lot.
Okay, now here's the bad faith arguments that they're giving. Now he's talking about slavery ended 150 years ago. So you're not going to be able to ask anybody if they were a slave. And there are people who might not know that an ancestor of theirs came from the Caribbean. These are really bad faith and very easily debunkable talking points and arguments, because most people, to be honest, most people kind of know where they're from, even if they haven't did their, you know, background history and look their family up and know exactly, like, my family is from this state in this county in this, you know, plantation. Even if they don't know that much, most black people know exactly where their family comes from. Most black immigrants, not just foundational black Americans, but most black immigrants know where their family comes from. Most, if you are a black Haitian, a black Jamaican, or whatever the case is, even if you're third, second, or fourth generation, okay, and what we see is a lot of third, first, second, and third. You don't see as many fourth, but even if you're fourth or fifth, you tend to, most of the time, know that. Most of the people who came to this country from another land, they know that. They're aware of that. Okay, so all this, people might not know, nobody knows. Yeah, you're gonna have to do your background to prove it anyway. That's pretty much the thing. the background thing is not to find out for yourself, because us as foundational Black Americans, you're a foundational Black American and you know you are, and you don't have to even like kind of prove it. You don't have to look it up and find it like, oh my God, I didn't know I was FBA. You know you're FBA. But the thing is, in order to get the reparations, you're gonna have to prove it anyway. So we do dig into our lineage and stuff like that. There's nobody who's doing their lineage and who's all like, oh my God, I had no idea I was Haitian. No, that's not what's going on. Even if you have a little bit of Haitian, lineage, you're still going to have a lot of FBA lineage. You might have a great uncle or something like that who was Haitian. Okay. But you're still, for the most part, foundational Black American. Nobody's confused about that aspect.
A lot of recent immigrants, I
don't know
know
why the
would
value.
maybe try to get the reparations, but they don't unfortunately qualify.
Like, it doesn't matter when your ancestor came from here or there, right? If you're experiencing something now. But the issue is not about now. It seems to be about restoring the past in a specific time period, specific qualifications. And so that's where things are like kind of dicey, right? Because we're not just talking about solving inequality for people of color in 2023. One of the things I sent you, and I wanted to read the quote, was from an article that said there's always a problem if the proposals designed or written in such a way that individuals who are, quote, currently living as white may have ancestors and would be eligible for Black reparations. So that's a potential problem, they're saying. The phrase living as white, like I'm an undercover Black person.
Just this weird obsession with a lot of people who identify as Black, who there's this weird obsession with,
Now, before he goes off into his thing, she was talking about there are Black people, and this is why the language that we use is so very, very important, because we have to understand slavery did happen a minute ago. Slavery, it wasn't like centuries and centuries and centuries ago, but it happened a while ago. And there has been a lot of interracial breeding within that time afterwards, even during that time, but afterwards. So there are, let's just be honest, there are white people who do have ties to FBA lineage. This is why we say foundational Black American, because that clears all of that stuff up. When you say foundational Black American, yeah, you might have a great grandma who was a slave, and you're, Connor White, and you got blue hair and you got blue eyes and blonde hair, but you're not a foundational Black American. Even if you do have that tie to it, you're still not a member of the lineage. You just have a loose tie to it. See, that's why we use the term foundational Black Americans, because there's going to be a lot of people who say, hey, technically, I'm 3% FBA. I mean, I have ties to the lineage. Can I get some money too? We're going to have a lot of that. You're going to start to see a lot of that come up. So that's why we have it to where, okay, you have to be a foundational Black American, because you can't say I'm part foundational Black American. Either you're a foundational Black American or you're not. And a part of being a foundational Black American is you have to be Black. So we don't have to worry about a white person who has 4%, 5% DNA tie to foundational Black Americans. We don't have to worry about that if we use the right type of language when we're talking about slavery reparations. Now listen to what he has to say. I'm going to take it back a little bit.
Black person.
Just this weird obsession with a lot of people who identify as Black, who there's this weird obsession with, there are those among us who are passing. And that's something I see it all the time. It seems like that quote is saying that people who are identifying as white would not be eligible. But then it's kind of odd, because even if you are living as white, I thought the point of the reparations was kind of to restore justice or something for people who have African ancestry. So even if you are living as white, does that somehow negate African ancestors that were enslaved? It's very odd.
I am under no.
Now, first off, I'm going to say the cuts in these videos, if you notice, they're very sharp cuts. They're very strong cuts. It's very noticeable. So you guys know, when it comes to video editing or filmmaking, when you make cuts to a video, you want to make the cuts in certain points when people are talking to where it kind of flows smoothly. When a person is talking and you see a lot of different jumps and sudden movements and sharp cuts, it looks like the video has been edited very poorly. Now, I just noticed that. Now, back to what the dude was talking about. I don't think he's a foundational black. I'm just going to say that right now. I don't think he's a foundational black American. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing is that look, the way he's talked about, well, you know, it's to repair the past or something in African, and no. If you are a black person and this is your lineage as descendant, you are a descendant of a slave. So you carry a lot of the stigma from slavery. You carry a lot of the burden from the descendants of slaves. Okay. This is what happens to you. This is what has happened to you in your ancestry. This did not happen to white people. White people might have been tied to foundational black Americans, but white people were not slaves. They're not foundational black Americans. That ties all of this stuff up. And they're sitting up there asking, how does that work? Is this about slavery? Well, what if white? No. It's not about none of that. We don't even have to do a DNA percentage or anything like that, because that's not what this is about. Shout out to Panther Strike for the $10 super chat. He says, brother Afro Elite, we must hashtag delineate, absolutely, and hard. This fool and many like him will be the first in line for our reparations. I fully agree with that. Shout out to you, brother, for that, because I personally do not think that he's found. I think, if I could guess, I think he's Haitian. Why? Because they were talking about Creole. Okay, now there was a Creole lineage in America, foundational black American Creole, and then there's Haitian Creole. Those are two different types of Creole. Based off of the fact that he said he was Creole, and based off of the fact that he's speaking against reparations, leads me to believe that he's one of the Haitian Creole. So I don't think he's foundational black American. So he's looking at it like, if I can't get it, if my people can't get it, I don't want nobody to get it. That's how he's looking at the situation.
Well, I have no desire to apply to get reparations. Just get that out there in case people have a confusion. But it seems to me that this is going to disenfranchise enslaved African Americans whose descendants intermarried outside of that group. So those people are not going to be represented. If you care about representation and restoration, well, those people don't get it because their descendants don't have the right skin color. And so then I have to wonder, are reparations about being black in America, or are they about having enslaved ancestors? And what if you're one or not the other? That's a question. So again, for me, you know a lot about my genealogy, but I have a couple, I'm sure I have more, but I have
Now, here's the thing. Before she starts talking about her very loose ties to her black genealogy, right? And her saying black does not necessarily mean foundational black American. Let's just keep that in mind, right? But before she says that, she's all like, well, what about the black people who had interracial relationships and all that stuff? And what about them? What about them? Now, technically, okay, if you go to the FBA website, you can find this out. Technically, one of your parents has to be a foundational black American. You know what I'm saying? So if you are a foundational black American and you get with a non-black person or a non-FBA person, because they can be black but just not FBA, and you have a baby, that baby is still FBA. Okay, that baby still has a tie to the lineage because their parent is full FBA. Now we're not gonna do I have 1% FBA, so my baby's FBA. That's not how it works. Okay, we're not gonna go by the smallest little minuscule of FBA. You know what I'm saying? But if your parent is FBA, so it's not disenfranchising them. It's not, oh, you're not the right skin color. It's you have to have the right lineage. She's talking on these bad faith arguments. Now she's going to start talking on her genealogy. All right. And mind you, so you know, she brands herself as this mixed, ambiguous, Italian, Spanish, all that. She's doing all that stuff. I'm native, I'm Italian, I'm this, I'm that. She doesn't claim to be black, but now she's going to talk about her loose black ties. Check this out.
Documented lines to enslaved people of color, like super easy to get to. So
First off, and there was no enslaved people of color. Enslaved people of color does not exist. There was only enslaved foundational Black Americans. That's the only people who are enslaved on this country. Anything else, any other slavery that happened to anybody else, as bad as that is, that did not happen to anybody. That did not happen in America. America only had one group of people as slaves, and that was foundational Black Americans.
Mom's great grandpa and those kids.
Now, remember how we talked about? Do you guys remember how we talk about they're gonna find one person, my mom's great grandpa? This is exactly what she just did. I don't know if you got. I'm gonna play it back. This is exactly what they do. This is what's going to start happening. It's going to be people, because I don't have to say, well, my mom's great grandpa was a FBA. None of the rest of my family were FBA, but I'm going to lean on to, I don't have to do that. I can just go to my mom's side, full FBA. I can go to my dad's side, full FBA. I don't have to do that. Foundational Americans don't have to do that. But look at how hard she's reaching to find a little FBA tie in the situation. I find that very entertaining.
Great.
She looked confused as she was saying almost.
Again, for me, you know a lot about my genealogy, but I have a couple, I'm sure I have more, but I have documented lines to enslaved people of color, like super easy to get to. So my mom's great grandpa and those kids. So easy, right?
My mom's great grandpa. Great. She said 3 greats. Great. She probably left out a couple greats too, but okay.
So I'd be eligible, but they're saying here.
No, you would not be. She says, oh yeah, my mom's great grandpa. So I'd be eligible. No, ma'am. Nah, that tie ain't strong enough, ma'am. No, it's not. No, it's not. Even if your mom's grandpa was, that doesn't make you one. No, we're not doing that. No, yeah. So I'd be eligible. No. If you need a whole chart to list down the tie you get to the Foundation Black Americans, no, you're not eligible, ma'am. No, you're not. And you're not Foundational Black American because you're not a black woman. It doesn't matter if you have one black person in your whole family tree, you're not black.
That'd be a problem.
And they really want to make it kind of an us versus them thing. And that's why.
Now listen to this coon. Listen to this coon. Y'all thought y'all heard some coon, and listen to this guy.
I personally don't think that the entire topic is, like relevant, because it's, slavery wasn't like that, even though a lot.
Now he says, I'm gonna break it down. He says, I personally don't think the entire topic is relevant. He thinks that the topic of reparations is not relevant. All right. Because slavery was not like that. That's what he says, right? Now check this out.
People try to make slavery like that, where it's like, oh, evil white people against disadvantaged black people. I have people in my family, multiple ancestors, who were born a slave, and by the time they died, they were owning several slaves. So it's not how slavery worked. And why it's a problem for, I guess, like someone in your case, why they specifically mentioned that is because they don't want white people, even if you are a white person that has all these enslaved ancestors, that kind of messes up the concept of us versus them. Want that issue, and they don't want,
Now, this man just said, first off, I think he's lying. Like y'all saying, he's lying. I think he's lying too. I don't think he has a bunch of ancestors that had a bunch of slaves. I do not think, no, I don't think so. No, I personally think he's lying. Okay. I don't even think he's a foundational Black American. All right. And he said, oh, slavery was not like that. It wasn't the evil whites versus the blacks because Black people owned slaves. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. And then he says, oh, he says there was like 3. They always exaggerate the number of Black people who own slaves. They always do that. You know what I'm saying? When they talk about white people owning slaves, they try to make it seem like as low of a number as possible. But when they talk about Black people who own slaves, they shoot to the stars. They try to get the highest number they possibly can. All right. Now, context is everything. The Black people who were able to work and get their freedom or bought their freedom or somehow escaped the freedom, a lot of the Black people who did own slaves, they were owning their family members back. You know what I'm saying? They were buying their family members. This is why you don't hear a bunch of horrific stories about Black people making Black people work for their plantations. You didn't hear that. You don't hear stories of Black owned plantations where there were Black overseers making other Black slaves pick cotton. You don't see stories like that because that's not what was going on when Black people were buying their family members back. They were buying and freeing their family members back. Okay. And another thing, if it wasn't like that, because he's trying to make it seem like, oh, slavery, it was bad, but it wasn't no racial thing. That's what he's trying to say. It's not a race thing because Black people own slaves. Oh, okay. So did Black people own non-Black slaves? Did Black people own white people as slaves? He can't say that. Black people never owned any white people. So the only people, whether they were owned by Black people or whether they were owned by white people, the only people that owned any slaves that were ever slaves in this country were Black. How is that a coincidence? If slavery was not a racial thing, if it didn't have to do with race, it was just a business. That's what they like to spin it at. It was just a business. How is it only the Black people who were slaves? Why were there not white people who were slaves? If Black people owned slaves, if slavery wasn't a racial thing, and Black people could own slaves too, like he's saying, so it wasn't just white people who owned slaves. Okay, Black people, all right, fine. Where were the white slaves that were being owned, sold, traded, whipped, tortured, murdered, raped? Where were all of them? Where were all those white slaves that were owned by Black people? If that was the case, if slavery was not like that, first off, how you know that's not the what he's saying doesn't make any sense, because if slavery was not like that, Jim Crow would have never been a thing. Jim Crow is a result of the anti-Blackness, the hatred of Blackness that stemmed from slavery. Okay. All of the minstrel shows and the Jim Crow laws and the Black laws and all of that stuff, that was due to the hatred that America had for Black people, for Blackness. Okay. So if slavery wasn't an anti-Black thing, it was just a thing that happened in the country, why was there so much Black hatred in the country after slavery? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. Let's continue. This man is parade. He wants some butter biscuits for real, man.
Black people people who are identifying as Black people, to see all of these white people getting the reparations. Because the thing is, unfortunately, what it's going to come down to is a lot of white people are going to have the resources and whatnot to access these histories and say, like, I'm 2% Black, and so I'm going to find that African.
Now, here's one thing. He says, I'm 2% Black. Do you guys notice that was a thing? Do you guys, I hate to pause it again, let you guys play it, but don't you guys notice that the 2% Black, I'm 2% Black. Do y'all notice that that's a thing? That's a thing now. I'm 2% Black. Remember this clip? Remember this clip right here?
I mean, we have these problems where you have to define what does it mean to be Black. You know, doing my own ancestry, we have through my father, it's like 2% Congolese DNA. I have no idea where that comes from. I can tell you it's 7 or 8 generations back, and my family was here in the country at that time. So am I Black?
Remember that? Remember the clip where that white girl, she was all like, I'm 2% Nigerian, I'm a sister. Remember that clip, do you guys? So instead of it being a 5, they're not even doing 5%. Instead of it being $5 FBAs, now all these white folks are going to be 2% FBAs. Now that's the thing. It's going to be the 2% FBAs, huh? That's something else. I just noticed when I hear the same numbers coming up again and again and again and again, that makes me start to think that this is some type of thing that came from a think tank. Because there's no, I don't necessarily believe heavily in coincidences. It can happen. It can, I understand. But I don't believe you see something again and again and again and again and again, and it's completely random and it's all a coincidence. I just don't think so. I don't necessarily think that them all saying 2%, everybody saying I'm 2% this. I don't know. Now it's going to be a whole bunch of 2% FBAs. That's what we're going to start seeing. $2 FBAs. Y'all ain't even got the decency to pay the $5 like y'all did with the natives.
An ancestor from like 16 whatever, and then qualify, and a lot of Black people probably are not even gonna know about it even if it goes into law, quite frankly. And then that's going to be a big thing in the aftermath. So they, I think, automatically want to prevent simply white people from getting it.
That's interesting. I didn't think about even like access to information. A chairperson named Evelyn McDowell, and she was the chairperson of the Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage. And she said, quote, "It's absolutely possible for Black Californians to trace their lineage by determining the birth year of a great or great-great-grandparent in the South, and that would likely be sufficient evidence for eligibility."
Are they saying that eligibility is just simply based on if you have like that Black ancestor who was in this place at this time?
I think that's what they're saying. I think they're still trying to flesh this out.
Well, again, like what are we considering as Black? Because when they mean that, they're probably going to like look at these documents and say, oh, anyone who has the designation Black or mulatto. And I know some people are going to try to use that to qualify when a lot of them weren't enslaved. So I think, the pitfall that you're referring to is that just because you happen to be listed as mulatto or Black, but at a certain time period, that doesn't mean you were enslaved.
Again,
now here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing with that. More than likely, and here's the thing, there's been a lot of records that it can't, the further back you go, the more jumbled up it can be. It can be it's a little fuzzier the further back you go. But the thing is that if you can trace your lineage, if I trace my family lineage back to 1830, more than likely, my family, if my family, like great, whatever, however long great, until I reach the term 1830, the time 1830, their person is the percentage of that person being foundational Black American is incredibly high. It's almost 0% to the degree that there was this. Now they're talking about there's this like a large segment of Black people who are living in America who are not slaves or have any ties to slavery whatsoever. Even if you guys have watched the Maroon movie, American Maroon, even the American Maroons were FBA. Now, they broke out of slavery themselves. They freed themselves from slavery, but they still do have the ties to it because their family, their ancestors were still in bondage, and then they had to break away and free themselves. So a lot of the Maroons, a lot of them were ex-slaves. So it's not like there were any Black immigrants coming to this country at that time. There wasn't even any Black immigrants coming to the country after slavery ended. In very large numbers, in very, very small numbers they were coming, but in very large numbers, not really at all. So for you, if I pick somewhere in the early 1800s, 9 times out of 10, that person is going to be a foundational Black American. That person is going to be a slave, or that person is going to have slave ancestry. If that person was free, that person was probably free and their parents were slaves or something like that. That person's going to be a foundational Black American 9 times out of 10. So you don't even have to worry about that.
I think the point is having enslaved ancestors is not really the point of this whole thing. The whole point of this thing is something else, and something that I'm not a part of, and I don't have an experience, and I don't understand it for the same way.
Yeah, I am definitely surprised that some people are thinking about like cutting out like a decent amount of people, you know.
See, key word. Listen, when I said it before, and I'm going to say it again, they don't have an issue with slavery reparations. They don't have an issue with that. Their problem is the fact that they can't get any. That's their issue. That's their whole thing. That's why they're really mad. They're really mad because they can't get none. I can't believe they're cutting people out. That's their problem. From the other Haitian lady in the beginning of the broadcast to this guy right here, who I suspect is Haitian. I don't know for a fact, but I suspect this person is Haitian. That's their. I can't believe they're cutting people out. That's the issue that they have going on. So they have the mentality of, if I can't get it, I don't want nobody to get it. That's, if I can't have it, you shouldn't have it either. Let me give a shout out to the $20 super chat from Tell It Like It Is. He says, slave owners got reparations when slavery ended. It quote ended. That's exactly correct. That's 100% correct. They not only did they get reparations for turning in their slaves, the ones who complied with the union and turned their slaves in, they got reparations for having to lose their slaves. The ones who fought against slavery, fought for slavery against the Union with the Confederacy, if they, after the end of the Civil War, if they comply with the Confederacy, they got their stuff back. So technically, all of the slave owners got reparations. All right. So he's exactly correct about that. So did the so-called black slave owners get reparations? So did the so-called black slave owners get reparations too? That's a question. See, that's a good point. That's a good point. If slavery wasn't about race, if it had nothing to do with race, it was just bad people doing things to good people. If it was just about that, did the black slave owners get their land back? That's a good question. It says, where is that proof? That's a good question. And thank you very much for your super chat. I appreciate you. Let's continue though, because he just exposed why he's really upset with this.
One of the people on task force said, quote, for people of another race, assuming like me, to be able to capitalize off of that based on a lineage criteria that allows for a loophole for them to be able to apply, it's really nonsensical. And it's even more ironic and a slap on the face when lineage might be based on non-consensual. But they're saying, so basically, I think the assumption is a lot of times when someone that looks like me, I don't know, I guess African ancestry, it's because of a non-consensual relationship.
A common theme in the Black community certainly is saying, well, the only reason.
Now, here's the thing. What they're going to start talking about is they're going to start talking about the situation of a slave master going into, and violating his slave and impregnating his slave unconsensually. All right. I don't want to use the word, but unconsensually impregnating his slave. All right. And as Black people, we say, okay, well, a lot of light-skinned Black people get their light skin from the slave master, or a lot of them have ties with white people because of that unconsensual action that happened. So this is how they try to spin that.
And why we have European DNA is because this happened to our Black female ancestors when they were enslaved. And even like I was just thinking when you were saying like our common ancestor, a woman of color, was free most of her life. She was freed when she was 4 years old. And then later on, she married a white man. From that relationship, if any of her children were to themselves marry white people and that continues, they would be identifying as white, but their connection to their African ancestor would not be through these non-consensual relations. It would be simply because of we're an interracial couple, right?
And I feel
now, to be totally honest, what he said wasn't wrong. Yeah, okay. They do have ties to it, but their ties, if that person married a white person, if a black person if a foundational black American married a white person, and then that would make the person half FBA, and then that half FBA went on to marry a white person, and then had a baby that's a quarter FBA, and then that person married a white person, and then that person is on, like, we're not gonna go down that far, okay? You can be a half FBA. You can't be no, I'm a 15% FBA. Yeah, then no, you need to get your percentage up. I'm sorry. You no, that's not gonna work. No, just a no. I don't even have to explain it. It's just not gonna work.
I feel like there's this idea that there can't be interracial couples in a certain time period without it being non-consensual. And I think there probably were a lot of non-consensual, or women were feeling forced, but it's consensual but forced, and all those things. But I think sometimes,
first off, what did she just say? Did y'all? First off, at a certain point in time, black people and white people were not allowed to be in a relationship together. Okay. And she said, yeah, there were relationships, they were forced, but they were consensual. How is something consensual and forced at the same time? Maybe somebody in the chat can educate me on that, because I thought a relationship, a sexual relationship being forced upon somebody was unconsensual. I don't know how you can say something is consensual and forced in the same sentence. I don't know how you can say that. All right.
sometimes they just happen. And so just, I think this complicates things, because if we want things to be real binary, I do recognize that, like, I've had inherent privileges in my life because I didn't grow up in certain communities with certain experiences. And so I'm not trying to negate that by saying, well, I have enslaved ancestors too, and it's the same. I don't think it's the same. Are we addressing people who are we restoring these ancestors, or are we addressing inequalities in the community? Because I don't think they're the same thing. And I think there's a lot of communities that have inequality in America.
Now here's their talking point. Since they can't get it there, oh well, what about everybody else now? Listen, there's a lot of communities that have inequality in America. Okay, and this ain't about saving America reparations.
So then it starts to feel like, well, why just one group? I mean, I think about
why just one group? Because only one group was a slave. None of these other groups built America. None of these other groups are foundational to the country. None of these other groups can say that. All, ALL, capital ALL, all of these other groups came after the United States was already built. Most of these other immigrants didn't even come until, even the European immigrants, they didn't even come until after slavery ended in the 1860s.
The Japanese internment camps, that was much more recently. I mean, it's World War II.
Yeah, people are still alive who were experienced that.
Rounded up, put in a camp. Is it the same thing as slavery? No, but like we have these blights on our history, and then like, how do we navigate like all of the people that have been wronged?
One of the many negatives is it could backfire, I think, because a lot of other minority groups are going to be like, well, what about us? And that could very well make them feel some sort of way toward black people, like, oh wow, like why are they always getting this, or why do they get the reparations and there's nothing for us, and we were treated poorly as well.
Now, okay, here's the thing with that. Where he says that could make them feel some type of way about black people. Who give a damn? Who gives a damn? So what? They already have anti-black racism within their culture. They already do. And if they didn't, who cares? Now we got to sit here and compensate for the hurt feelings of other ethnic groups? No, we're not doing that. It doesn't matter how they feel about it. It could make them upset. Well, they can be upset then. Now, when they talk about giving other people money, reparations, she just talked about the Japanese. She said, and that was much more recent, but it was much more insignificant to the country. the Japanese that were not ever forced to build anything. Even the ones that claim they built the railroads, the Asians that claim they came over and built the railroads but got money for it and then went home, those are the ones who they claim built the railroads, despite the fact that there were railroads in America prior to that, and despite the fact that even when they were building the railroads, they were not doing it alone. There were also foundational Black Americans with them at the same time, building those exact railroads, but they want to give all the credit to them. They got paid. With the Japanese internment camp, they got paid. And it was only for a couple years anyway. It's not like when they were in their internment camps, it's not like they were forced to build anything. Like when we had when we were enslaved, we were forced to build things. We were forced to build railroads. We were forced to build buildings. We were forced to pick cotton, tobacco, sugarcane. We were forced to tend to the farm, to care for the animals. We were forced to do that stuff. When the Japanese were in their internment camps, they was just chilling for the most part. They was just kind of chilling. All together, they didn't split their families up. Nobody was tortured. Nobody was abused. Nobody was violated. None of that stuff. They didn't use Chinese babies as alligator bait. None of that stuff happened. They didn't eat them like they ate Black slaves. None of that stuff happened to them. And they got paid a long time ago. They're not sitting up there still suffering from the internment camps. They're not doing that. They're not doing that at all. And if we're going to be honest, they came here anyway. They decided to come here. And not all of the ones who were put in the internment camps were actually citizens too, mind you that. Some of them were illegal. But they came to America voluntarily. We're the only group of people who have not come to America voluntarily. There were some who were brought here through bondage, through the transatlantic slave trade. There were others who were here prior, right? But none of those people came to America voluntarily to benefit off of what America has done. Those Chinese people came to America voluntarily to benefit off of what we as foundational Black Americans have built. So they got their reparations. They got overpaid, if you ask me personally. And now he's talking about, well, that can make other people upset. Hey, so what? Who gives a damn? Talking about, why do they always get something? Always. When have foundational Black Americans ever gotten anything at all that everybody else hasn't gotten? You can literally not name one thing that foundational Black Americans have ever gotten that everybody else didn't benefit from. Everybody else couldn't be a part of. Not once, not one time. But he's talking about other groups of people are going to feel like, damn, why they always getting something? Well, first off, they're the people who built the country, so we should be the ones always getting something. And these talking points, we don't have that argument when Obama's sitting up there paying Israel, or when he's paying the Native Americans who get checked year after year. Okay, tax exemptions and all these other benefits. They didn't say that when it came to the the Native Alaskans. I did that other broadcast about reparations where I exposed that. They didn't do that when it came to people who got there was a vaccine and there was people who suffered, I forget the exact term of it, but there was people who suffered, health defects because of experiments done by America. Okay, they didn't do that when it came to the people who suffered from 9/11, right? Well, they didn't do that when it came to the Japanese people. But it's only us. It's like, damn, why are they the only ones who get something? Everybody's trying to mooch and leech off of us. And shout out to ACAB Devil for the $5 super chat. He says, I sent you a tweet. Okay, I'm going to check that. I wasn't really on Twitter that much today. Okay, I'm going to check it out. It says, I sent you a tweet. Watch the whole thing. Your audience should see how the same California Reparations Task Force reacted. How some of the California Reparations Task Force reacted, Amos Brown included. Amos Brown, remember, y'all, Amos Brown was the one who was sitting up there like when the proposal came from San Francisco for them to get cash payments, Amos Brown rejected that. The head of the NAACP in San Francisco, he rejected that. Okay, so that's how you know that's who Amos Brown is. But thank you for the super chat. I'm gonna check that tweet out. let me get back to the video.
Definitely do acknowledge that, you know, slavery in particular, I definitely think was a worse situation than a lot of other things that other groups maybe have experienced and stuff like that. I think when we consider who were the people who were enslaved, it gets a little tricky because we could think about like, you know,
First off, it doesn't get a little tricky. Who were the people who were enslaved? It gets a little tricky. No, no, it don't. No, it don't. Foundational Black Americans. Who else? How is that a tricky question? You got to crowbar other people into slavery. So how is it a tricky question?
you know, our ancestor, Marie-Jeanne Lemel, she was enslaved and she was um, essentially, she's 75% European. She was essentially like, you know, a white woman and she was enslaved as a little girl. There were a lot of people just in her situation.
Now what's going to happen? What you're going to start seeing happening is now you're going to see him start to talk about slavery outside of America. Now it's going to be slavery outside of America. Because when you talk about who, well, it wasn't only Black people who were enslaved. Every time you say that, they have to reach out. Well, what about Europe? What about Haiti? What about Jamaica? That's when they start talking about other slavery incidents around the world.
Who were enslaved. And I think, you know, that's not depicted on the media. When you see these slave movies, everyone's extremely dark and stuff like that. You don't see people who have, you know, the fair skin and the pale skin and whatnot.
Well, okay. When you talk about, yeah, when you see people in the movie, everybody's extremely dark skinned. You don't see the pale skin. Yeah, there were some light skinned slaves, but you do see them in the movie. You see light skinned slaves in the movie. There were some light skinned slaves, but most of the slaves were not light skinned. There was not a huge amount of light skinned slaves like that. Okay, working out there in the hot sun all day long for their entire lives. Most of them were pretty dark skinned. You know it's not inaccurate because when you look in the actual pictures, there was real pictures of slavery. Okay. Most of the actual photos you see of slaves, the real life photos that you see were taken of slaves, they were dark skinned people. There wasn't, it's not like, oh, there were light skinned people. There were, and even there were, don't get me wrong, there were, but a lot of them were dark skinned. So the slave movies are not inaccurately depicting that.
But that was a thing. South Carolina received about 1,000 or so slaves from Madagascar. Enslaved people were of Southeast Asian origin primarily, and there's even been historical recounts of the fact that people would like look at them and like record like, wow, like why does this slave like look so Asian? Because you know they were. It's not something like slavery is not something that only Black people went through essentially.
But the thing is, now he's saying this slavery is not something that only Black people went through, essentially, and he had to go all the way to Madagascar, okay, a small like little island on the coast of Africa. Slavery is not something that only Black people went through, but it's only slavery in America. Only Black people went through. Only Black people were slaves in America. We're not talking about slavery ever since the beginning of recorded human history America has to pay for. We're talking about who did America, the United States of America, as a founded government, force to build America, forced to make slaves. Okay. First off, it was prior to 1765, or it was 1760s, right? Right. But all that time, America has forced a very specific amount of group of people to build slaves to build America. There was only one group of people who were slaves in this country. We're not talking about Japan, China, Europe. We're not talking about none of that.
And so it becomes difficult when you're trying to now make it so, okay, only Black people can benefit from the reparations when a lot of people were affected by this, and a lot of people contributed to it, because who's paying for the reparations too?
My dad's
He
family
says
are
a lot of people were affected by it. Yeah, a lot of people were affected by it. Actually, everybody in America was affected by it. Everybody in America was affected by the fact that they benefited off of it. Everybody benefited off of it. Yeah, that's an effect. People benefited off of it, but everybody was not affected negatively. Everybody else was affected positively. Everybody else was able to come here and leech off of the work that was already done.
like his grandparents came over in like the 1880s, 1890s to Ellis Island. Okay. They were here when this was all done. They had
Now, hold on. Listen. This is a talking point you're going to see a lot of people say too.
parents came over in like the 1880s, 1890s to Ellis Island. Okay. They were here when this was all done. They had nothing to do with this. You have to start thinking, well, do people put into the pot when they weren't even here yet? And like, what happens with that? And again,
okay, do people put into the pot when they weren't even here yet? Yes, they do. They have to. Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. Yes, you do. They came over after the 1880s and 1890s. Have to put into the pot. Yeah, because you came over and you benefited. Okay. Now the thing is that the United States government is the one who's paying for all of this. You're not the United States government, so you don't have to worry about it. The thing is that they try to make slavery seem like we're asking every white person to take a percentage out of their own personal check to pay us. The taxes that they already automatically pay is not going to be affected. It's not going to be affected. It's not going to be no huge, ginormous tax increase like they keep saying. Oh my God, why should my taxes be increased? Why should I raise my tax? Why should they raise your tax? Don't worry about your taxes. Your taxes are not going to be increased. When they paid for the pandemic, when they gave trillions of dollars to businesses and other people across America and paid trillions of dollars when the American economy was damn near frozen, and the government still paid trillions of dollars, not just the stimulus checks, but states paid billions of dollars as well too. That didn't raise nobody's taxes. It didn't raise nobody's taxes at all was raised by that. Now, you want to be an American citizen. This is the debt that America pays. Okay. So if your taxes go to that, you did choose to be an American. Nobody forced you to become an American citizen. Okay. So the government is going to pay for it. And that's going to be it. That's what this is going to be. Oh, should I have to pay for it? Well, if you got an issue, you can go back home. That's the way it is. Nobody's asking you to increase your taxes or anything like that. You guys never have a problem increasing your tax, or not increase, because they don't. You never have a problem when it comes to the Japanese reparations, these reparations, trillions and trillions of dollars going to Ukraine, going to Afghanistan, going to the military. That never increases nobody's taxes. Nobody's worried about, man, why do my taxes have to go to this? Nobody's ever worried about any of that other nonsense. But when it comes to us, oh my God, why should my taxes? I didn't own a slave. What the hell? No. Don't worry about your taxes. They're going to stay fine. You know, America is going to pay us our money. You just sit here and you be grateful for the fact that we built the country that you want to live in. That's what you do.
Again, I'm not saying that there should not be some amending for this, but I'm just thinking the way this is being laid out, not everybody was here participating in this. Not everybody's ancestors were my ancestors that were here were enslaved. The other ones were in the
Yeah, okay. Well, the ancestors that were not slave don't get money. It's very, very simple. It's so very simple. Because when it comes to the Japanese, when they got their reparations for the internment camps that they were put in, nobody was sitting up there like, well, why don't all Japanese people get it? Why? Because there were more Japanese that got it afterwards. They got their reparations a good, 40 years after the fact? It was like 23 or 40 years after the fact, right? Nobody was all like, well, I'm Japanese too. Why can't I get it? They was no, these are for the people who are descendant of the ones we put in the internment camps. And that was it. And nobody made an argument. Everybody understood. Okay? So we're not going to play that game.
Mediterranean. So
I've heard that so much. I've even had like, friends of mine complaining about that. Like, oh my God, they better not do reparations because I just came here from Russia. My family just came here in the 90s. So what do we have to do about any of this? Would this come from the government? Would this come out of like taxes? Because if it's coming out of taxes, then everybody's paying for it. Like
now, okay. And shout out to Black Star because he answered the question greatly. First off, it's coming out of the government. We're going to stop this whole thing where the government don't have no money at all. The federal government has absolutely no money. And the only way the federal government can pay for anything is if they increase the taxes on something. That is so untrue. That is so untrue. That not just the federal government, the city government, the state government, all of these governments have money stored for different circumstances. That's why they have budgets for things, because they have money and they disperse it throughout. Okay, well, we need money for law enforcement. We're going to need money for construction, for state construction, for the roads. We're going to need money for the school budget. We're going to need money for these home. They do all governments throughout America do that. Okay, we're just going to stop playing this stupid game. Everybody's acting like they're stupid and don't understand. All right, this is what American government does all of the time. So to say, oh, well, is it going to come out of the government? First off, yes, it will. That's what we're talking about. Nobody's saying that white people pay it. And two, if we going to be honest, y'all better be glad that we not saying that y'all got to pay something, because y'all benefit off of it. That's literally like somebody making a full course meal and everything. And you know how we have family I was about to say revolutions. You know how we have family reunions or whatever, and everybody bought something. It's like a potluck at work or something. Everybody bought something, whether it's drinks, food, dessert, whatever. You didn't bring anything. You didn't bring nothing at all. And you coming and you getting plates and plates and plates. You stacking plates up. You taking plates home. You got plates. And you know how you put the plate on top of the plate and then you put it in a bag to take it home? You got plates ready to go. You benefiting off of the barbecue that everybody else contributed. You didn't contribute nothing. And then somebody else like, hey, can you help clean up? You were like, damn, I gotta help clean up. What the hell is this? What is all this? Why I gotta help clean up? Because you came and you benefited off of something that somebody else did. The least you can do is help clean up. If they came voluntarily wanting to be American citizens, this is the debt America owed. We're not going to play this game where they didn't know slavery was going on in America. When everybody in the world knew what was going on in America. Let's get that out of our minds. Everybody in the world knew what was going on in America. It was going on since at least 1619 to 1865. Centuries. Is not like people didn't know, but they knew America was built off of slave labor, and they was like, bet I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna get, like the barbecue analogy, I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna get my plate. I'm gonna sit down at the table or I'm gonna take it home. So the fact that we saying, oh, well, technically you got to pay a little bit of taxes. You know what I'm saying? This is your, you want to be American? This is your American tax. They're like, damn, I didn't come till after everything was done. Okay, all right, but you're still eating the food though. What the hell you mean? Yeah, you do have to. You gotta. Hey, they wanted to be American. Let's see. This is the test to see how patriotic they are. America owes this debt. You guys wanted to become citizens. Let's see how patriotic you are. Why don't you guys? You shouldn't mind paying it, right? Not that we're asking you for it anyway, because we're not sitting up there asking you for it. We're telling the government to pay it. But you guys, if you guys were true patriots of America, you guys shouldn't have a problem. It shouldn't be a problem for you guys to pay it, to be honest.
Like black people, white, purple, yellow, anybody, like everyone's paying for it. If you are like a black person and you get like a check or something like that, but you paid for it with your taxes, it's kind of like, what if it's like a net zero? So it's like, it doesn't.
In California, I think it's up to 5 million per family. So I think
and in California, it's not 5 million. Well, she said per family. So it could be like 5 million per family, depending on how many people are in the family. But no, black people are not going to pay their own reparations. That's stupid as hell. Now they're sitting up there, I don't know what they pay. Well, ask the Japanese. We're not going to sit here and play this game like reparations is a foreign concept that's never worked before.
I'll be net positive when that one goes. Maybe people.
Not a net zero, but that's crazy.
It was a professor from Howard University School of Law. And he said, quote, if you're going to try and say you're sorry, you have to speak in the language that people understand, and money is that language.
Just knowing the black community, I could see them saying, oh, they thought we could give us a check and everything's going to be better now. So, I think the community, like, we're still going to be, like, it's not going to help. And that's another thing why I feel like
look at the way he said, just knowing the black community, look how down he's talking to the about us as foundational black Americans. Just knowing the black community, you think you can give us a check and it's going to be better now? It won't. No, it won't. If you think you give us our reparations and all is forgiven, no, that's not how anything works. That's not how nothing works. If somebody robs you and then they give what they robbed from you back to you, is everything square now? No, it's not square. You still rob me. What is this? No, it's not square. No, we're not cool now. Okay? If you rob a bank and you say, you know what, my bad, I'm going to give you the money back. You take $1 billion from a bank and next week you give every single dime back. Can you be like, well, do I still have to go to jail? Yes, nigga, you still got to go to jail. You robbed the bank. You still have to be, it's not square now because you gave us the money back. So black people, and it's not like reparations going to end white supremacy or racism. So yeah, we still going to have an issue. We still going to have an issue. Yes, we will.
Effective because you can give that money and what's going to happen?
Now this is the damn Dr. Phil talk. Well, you're going to give them that money and they're going to just spend it on, weed and Jordans and, cigarettes and listen, hold on. Let me take it back. So you get the full, you get the full amount of it.
It's not going to help. And that's another thing why I feel like it's not going to be effective because you can give that money and what's going to happen? Because the thing is, if you're saying you're giving the money to restore and help people because a lot of, the so-called black people who are getting it are not doing well. Well, a lot of people who are not doing well are not, you have to ask yourself, well, why?
Now, here's the thing. We're not asking for reparations because we're quote unquote not doing well. We have to, the first part of the conversation when it comes to reparations is the reparations is a debt that is owed to all foundational black Americans. Reparations is not something that only we're doing. Look, we need some help. That he's framing it as if reparations is like a welfare. We're not asking for reparations that are welfare. There's a lot of FBA who are doing pretty good for themselves, and they are still 100% entitled to their reparations. It's a debt that's owed to them. You can't say, oh, because you doing well, you don't get reparations. Exactly right. Somebody in LeBron James, he gets a check too. LeBron James got all the money he ever would need, and he would still get his reparations check. Okay, he's doing very, very well, better than 90% of Black America, but he still would get reparations. So you say, oh, if they're not doing well, they get no. We're demanding reparations because it's a debt that's owed, whether we're doing well or not. Just the same way the Japanese were asking for reparations for their ancestors being put in the internment camps. They weren't saying, hey, we're not doing well because our ancestors were put in the internment camps, so we need this money to help us out. No, they were saying, whether we doing well or not, you still got to give us that money because you did us wrong. You did my people wrong, and you have to atone for that. My people need to be compensated for the wrongdoing that you have done. So that's the end of that discussion.
Money, and you're never used to having money, you're not going to maybe even know what to do with it. So that
We're not going to know what to do with it. But when they were arguing that other people should get reparations too, they don't talk about, oh, we're not, Jamaicans aren't going to know what to do with the reparations money. Haitians aren't going to know what to do with the reparations money. Africa, Nigerians, they're not going to know what to do with reparations. What about the black and brown? Now, when it's black and brown and when it's people of color, you don't hear the argument. They're not going to know what to do with reparations now. They're not, they're black and brown people are too dumb for reparations. You know what I'm saying? They're black and Jamaicans, Haitians, Nigerians, Ghanans, and all South Africans. They're too dumb for reparations. Nobody makes that argument. Poor people who are lower class, blue collar workers, they're too dumb for reparations. They wouldn't know what to do with it. Nobody makes that argument. If you include any other group of people in our reparations, nobody makes that argument. The second we say no, the reparations are specifically, exclusively for foundational Black Americans, then oh my God, I mean, they're not financially literate. They're too dumb. They're gonna just waste. They don't know how to spend. Oh my God, they're children. They're children.
it has to be, I think, a question too.
I'm assuming I'm going to say
Let me ask you a question. If you were working at a job and you get your paycheck on Friday, either you go to get your check or your check come through direct deposit, you check your phone to check to see your check, Wow, really? You go to your phone to look at your check and you see it's not there. Go to the bank account, look, see it's not there. So you go to your job and you go to HR and you're like, hey, what's going on? You go to your boss, what's going on? Oh, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Mr. FBA person, Mr. and Mrs. FBA person. We Mr. Johnson decided he wasn't going to give you his check until he determined that you are going to spend it for a just cause. Do you know how that would be the last day you worked there? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Williams, he said that he hasn't really been trusting your spending habits. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't know what you're going to spend the money on. So until we determine exactly, until he sees fit, yeah, her face is, yeah, I know, paused it at a very unflattering moment in the video. I know, right? But can you imagine that? Yeah. That would be your last day working at that job. And you would still get your check. You'd be like, hey, I ain't leaving until I get my check. Y'all gonna need to call the police because I'm getting my check before I leave. Or we all ain't leaving. That's just what it is. And you would quit that job after you got, I promise you, if you were in that situation, you're gonna make sure before your life ends, you get that check. You would fight to the death for you to get that check, and you would still leave that job.
reparations. It's like you're making up for something, right? You're like repairing something. If healing's the goal, and this doesn't bring healing, what does bring healing?
And this doesn't bring healing. Who are you to determine what brings healing to a group that you're not a part of? That's that same Dr. Phil BS. Who are you guys who are not qualified to really even speak on Foundation Black Americans reparations? Who are you guys to determine what is healing and what isn't healing? You guys don't get to make that determination. Oh, if this is about healing, we say that's not really healing. What you guys need is education.
To people who didn't go through the enslaved experience, right? But are keenly aware of the effects of it on their family. How do we how do we really repair this? Because it feels like something needs to be fixed here. Like it obviously does. And I think throwing money at it may not be, like you're saying, like maybe it helps a little, but yeah.
In terms of healing, I think there could be investments to put things in place that would actually help.
Like into the community, you mean?
Yeah, into the community.
Do you agree? I think at the end of the day, are you for or against reparations?
Now, she said into the community. What the hell does that mean? What does putting money into the, I mean, let's be honest. What does that's too vague. What are you going to build a park? You're going to fix the lighting in schools? You're going to put new water fountains at the bank? What does that mean, putting money in the community? That is so damn vague. You're going to fix the potholes in the street? That's now reparations.
In this way.
I would say personally, I'm against like I guess what a lot of people think of when they think of reparations, like the money. I think there's a lot of like what we call like white guilt, where a lot of white people are like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. What do we do? How can we fix it? And it's just like, oh, well, like, let's just do this, like something, but not for the Black community, but for themselves. Because then now they can free themselves of this guilty conscience and say, okay, well, we gave them money, so I did my no more guilt. I feel great now. But then it's like, well, will that actually, have an effect? Will that actually do something? And I think why I'm also against reparations.
Now, he says reparations is because white people feel guilty, and there's so much white guilt, and white people will feel satisfied giving us the money because they feel like they can relieve themselves of their guilt. Let me tell you something. White guilt is some of the fakest things you will ever hear. There is no white guilt. White people don't feel guilty for a damn thing. Don't listen. You're gonna see some crazy white people, they're gonna bow to Black people, they're gonna put chains on their ankles and wrist. They're gonna be like, my ancestors owned slaves, take me as a slave, let me bow to you. That stuff was going on in 2020. White people, that's fake. That's fake. White people don't feel guilty for, they know, first off, you can't own them as a slave. They know that. They know all of that stuff. They're going to take pictures. They're going to take pictures like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for reparations. They're going to turn to the camera with a little tear in their eye. The second the person takes a couple pictures, they're going to be like, okay, get this stuff off me. Get me away from these niggers right here. I can't stand this. Just like the Black Lives Matter thing. How many white people did we see with the Black Lives Matter hashtag going on in 2020, where they were like, oh my God, Jamal, Shaquika, I can't believe this. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did this to my people. I'm sorry, Black Lives Matter. They were doing all of that stuff. And then after 2020, they were like, I thank God I can take this out of my hashtag. All that stuff is fake. How you know it's fake is because there are no white allies pushing for reparations. All of the, I see it, I dated a Black girl in college, man. All of that stuff is fake. They're not pushing for reparations. He's sitting up there trying to make it seem like it's white people trying to push for reparations. There is absolutely no white support when it comes to reparations at all. White people hate the concept of cash payment reparations. So they're not in support of that whatsoever. So this isn't, they're only doing this so white people are doing this so they can feel good about themselves. White people don't want this to happen. It's foundational Black Americans who are making this happen. We are forcing the issue. They're the ones who are like, yeah, I like you, but, you know what I'm saying? I mean, cash, really? You don't want food stamps or something, dude? That's what they're like. White people, there's no white guilt. White people don't feel guilty for a damn thing, because they don't want to pay for it. If white guilt was a thing, you would have white people be all like, oh, I will gladly pay reparations. You can take something out of my check. I won't care. You can increase my taxes, whatever we can do to atone for the harm and the sin of slavery. I will 100% comply, and I will help you guys with. You ain't heard no white person say that. Ain't no white person trying to really atone for slavery.
I don't agree with it. And also, because I I have read a lot about slavery and I know how it worked. Black people and also people who were mixed race did engage in owning slaves. It was a business and it was, you know, obviously now in 2023 we say like it was like an evil business. It's difficult for me to agree and
Now he's saying that, remember we said this before. Now he's saying, hey, black people own slave too.
be for reparations when I don't think they're actually going to repair much.
Now he's saying it was a business. It was a business. Okay, all right. If it was a business, where were the white slaves? If it was a business, right? Now let's really break that down. I'm sorry. Let's really break that down. Slavery was a business about making money. Okay. If it had no racial aspect, it was just about making money. Okay. Wouldn't it have been more profitable for white slaves to be slaves too? Even if you still have black slaves, right? Wouldn't it have been more profitable for white slaves to be, would it make sense, right? Instead of, if it was all a business, right? Would it make sense for them to go from Europe and start going from Europe to Africa to bring slaves here instead of bringing the poor people that they already didn't like in Europe? Why did they ship from all the way from Africa and bring them to America? Why did they not ship any at all of these white slaves? Why didn't they ship the Irish? Why didn't they ship the Italians? Why didn't they ship the Greek and the Polish, who were not considered white at that time? If it was all about just making money, why wasn't everybody a slave? Why did they specifically make sure only black people were slaves? You know what I'm saying? If it was all about making money, if it was just a business about money, it had no racial aspect, why did you never see any white people as slaves? They went out of their way to cross the country to go to Africa to bring Africans to America and enslave them, but they didn't do that to the people who are already quote unquote slaves in Europe. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense.
I do believe that a lot of people in, you know, the community, specifically like the Black community, want to feel like they're the only group that had anything bad happen to them. And that's the
And black people, he said, I do feel like black people in America want to feel like we're the only group that had anything bad happen to us. Black people in America never claim we're the only group who've ever had anything bad happen to us. But we are for the most part, I mean, to be honest, if we're going to be technical, everybody else came here voluntarily. But what we went through is so much more than what anybody else went through really in the world, but especially here in this country.
the common, you know, even like growing up, I feel like that's kind of like how you feel like when you grow up like as a Black person, like, oh, that's what you hear at home a lot for a lot of people. I always mention to people, I'm like, well, this was originally indigenous land. And I always ask people, I'm like, when's the last time you saw someone who's fully indigenous? 90% of them died when colonization started to happen. And so they're largely not here.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point.
First off, this video is very poorly edited. It really is. The cuts are just so sharp. It doesn't have a natural flow to it at all. Now, the her camera quality is very sharp. It's just her edits, her cuts are too sharp. But his camera quality is piss poor. It looks like he's recording this on 2005. But this dude, okay, we weren't the only people who were here. The natives were, first off, there's a lot of foundational Black American who are full native, who are native. And even if we weren't, let's say we weren't, they got paid. They got paid. They got their money. They got their casinos, and they're still getting checks to this very day. They got paid, and they didn't build America either. They got their own land, their own government, and they got their own money that they're continuing to get, and they did not have to build America. So what about them? And if we're going to be totally honest, they participated heavily in the slave trade. They were some of the biggest slave catchers, and they owned slaves. So we want to really bring the Native Americans into the situation. They owe money too.
Point. And I mean, just to put in like a personal experience I've had. So after college, I did Teach for America, like, the Peace Corps. And I asked to get sent to the Dene Reservation, the Navajo Reservation in New Mexico. So I wanted to go there and teach. And I lived there. And so the school was a school where the kids lived on campus during the week, and then they would go home on the weekend. And so I offered to drive students home on Fridays. And we're like out in the middle of nowhere, like Mesa. They're literally the directions you would get for people. Be like, turn at the Mesa that looks like a sombrero. I'm like, they all look like sombreros. But I would drive some students home, and the traditional home for the Dene is a hogan. It's like an octagonal house. And a lot of the students, when I would drop them off, these homes had dirt floors, no running water. And I had to leave them there, knowing that they didn't have electricity. They were on a dirt floor. And it's like, I'm not to say if they weren't loved, they didn't have a good family experience, but this is a experience, like right now, this is happening in America to these people. I'm not trying to denigrate the African-American experience and say it's not hard, but it starts to feel like there's so many wrongs. I don't know how you fix them all. And maybe that's the point, is that
First off, those people have the ability to move. Why don't they, like they tell us, why don't they just pull themselves by their own bootstraps? See, this is the argument that we hear a lot when it comes to other groups of people. Now they want to pull out the damn violin. Anytime anybody else goes through something, it's all of a sudden it's the violin. Oh my God, look at what the other people, this is so, I can't believe it. It's terrible. They don't have any running water. If you want to talk about a water crisis, there's no group in the world, or in America, I will say in America, but I'm going to be honest, the world, if we're going to be honest, because no government poisons the water for their citizens besides America. You want to talk about water crisis, and when we still dealing with water crisis from Flint, Michigan, and we're talking about Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi. You want to talk about some damn water crisis. They don't have any running water. Well, you don't say that about what's going on in Flint, and you don't say that about what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi. So I don't want to hear nothing about no water crisis that any other group of people are going through. We're not supposed to pull our heartstrings out and start playing with the violin and all that stuff for water crises that other people go through. Tell them to pull themselves by their own bootstraps. Why don't they just move? That's what they told us with Flint. Oh, why don't y'all just move? It's not that big. Why don't you just move? Why don't they just move then? If it's that bad, if it's that bad, they should just pull themselves up by their own bootstraps and just move. Why don't they just work hard like everybody else? Everybody's gonna have water problems, right? They should just move. It's just because they're lazy. They deserve it. They're lazy. If they weren't lazy, they would live in a better condition. This is America, land of the free.
We can't necessarily like fix what happened. Maybe it's more about like changing what we do going forward. I don't know.
That's a good point. Like, changing what we do moving forward. I don't think it's gonna ever be like a full, like, okay, now we are here. I think it's just something that happened, and it's going to affect us to a certain extent. You can't go back in time, fix it. So it's just like,
do you see how many, I don't know if you guys notice it, but do you see how many cuts this person is? Like, they cut up every single sentence and they force it together, which gives me the implication that he's making very long pauses, because these cuts are so sharp. I don't know if you guys are noticing that. When you edit videos, you definitely notice that. But these edits, these cuts are super sharp and put together, and it makes the video not flow well, especially when he's speaking. Is like jump after jump after jump, and you can tell by his head being in different positions.
Be better to just direct your attention to like now and the future, instead of trying to correct things that happened in the past.
I feel like there is a positive side to this like restorative justice concept, or this idea of literally giving money to people who are descendants of enslaved people.
I think I would say the positive is that I mean, it shows that the U.S. government, or at least some people in the U.S. government, are recognizing that slavery existed and that a lot of people were impacted by it. It kind of, I guess, shows that they are aware of the lasting consequences of slavery.
Maybe this would get more people doing their genealogy and finding out how they're connected, because
Okay, yeah, now she's trying to do the positives. Okay. No. Just no. Just no. Just no. No. Let me check out, actually. Now, first off, she's not black. She is not a black woman. She's not even half black. She's not even a mulatto. This woman is talking about her great-great-great-grandfather was black, was a descendant of slaves, so she would qualify. She wouldn't qualify, and I doubt that other dude would qualify. He's probably not going to qualify either. Okay? I got the strongest feeling that this dude is Haitian. And you know me, I don't just be saying that without any type of proof. I don't just be using the word tether without no type of proof. Based off of what he's saying, it sounds to me like he's like that. Okay. Now the thing is that these are some of the issues that she's having with how would it work? How would it work? I mean, it's not feasible. It's not feasible when it comes to us. Now, remember in the first half of the video, they was all like, well, why is it just this? Why is it just this? Why can't whites be included? Because she identifies as white. No matter what she says or whatever the case is, she identifies and lives life as a white woman. She's in the video, she was talking about yeah, I mean, the world treats me as white, and I live a quote unquote white life. Yeah, you live a white life, woman, because you are white. You are a white woman. Your race is white. You are a member of the white race. That's why the world treats you as white, because you are racially classified as white. The world don't treat me as white. The world don't treat none of y'all as white, because y'all not white. She's white. That's why the world treats her that way. Shout out to Mike TV for the $5 super chat. He says, great commentary. Thank you very much, brother. I would love to have you join my panel sometime. Okay, yeah. We can discuss that. I discuss FBA tether issues from time to time. Okay. My email is in the description below. So you can email me there and we can talk about that. I appreciate the super chat. Yeah, just email me. It's in the description. It's it's afroelite10@gmail.com. Now I want to play, because our brother ACAB sent me this, so I want to play this real quick to see what exactly. Hold on now. First off, I'm gonna play this. Shout out to the Black Authority, because I wanted to play this next too. We're talking about reparations, and oh boy, hold on, let me get this off screen. Here comes everybody's. This is Jim Clyburn. This is Jim Clyburn right here, talking about, somebody asked him directly if he supported cash payment reparations, and this is what he had to say.
What you say? You want to know if you support reparations? I'm sorry? You want to know if you support reparations? I'll support reparations out in that name. Y'all need to learn what reparations is. Y'all keep talking about a word. It means to repair. It's cash payments. Hell no. You never get it. Why not? That's why we need your support. You got a lot of power. You will never get it. You have a lot of leverage. Let me ask you a question. You get our support. We've been dedicated to you for a very long time. Will you listen? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. If you are mulatto and you are allowed to get an education, and this person is not allowed to get an education, how will you measure which one to do what? I was allowed to get an education, but I'm still. That's not the point. You're talking about the law. You're talking about the law. You're talking about my wife, whose grandfather was white, and therefore her mother could get educated, but her daddy was African and could not get educated. How do you measure that? But Africans get educated now. You support Africans getting educated right now. We're living in Africa. You living in America. I know you got more sense than I got. I understand. Thank you.
First off, do you see how terribly he tried to deflect off of reparations? What reparations really mean? He said, "Hell no." Keep in mind, he was all like, "Y'all don't know what y'all using a word. Y'all don't even know what it means." Reparations mean to repair. Everybody knows what reparations mean. Okay, everybody knows that, and we see how reparations has played out for other groups of people. We see that. All right. So this isn't we're just using a word that we found out a year or two ago. We've been seeing that. Shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson, because he's been talking about this decades ago. Okay. So we know exactly what reparations is. Then he says, okay, do you support cash payments? He says, hell no, I don't support cash payments. Okay. Then he's talking about education. Well, my wife's great grandpa or something like that was white and he got an education. And what if one person is white and listen, this is the United States of America in 2023. Everybody can get an education. What are you talking about? Everybody can legally get an education. Now, whether you can afford it, that's a different question, but everybody can get an education. What is this education? Education to do what? Let's ask that question. Education to do what? To go work a job, to make a white employer rich, because they're going to make more money off of the job that you're working than you're going to make. That's the way a job works. If somebody is paying you $10 an hour, they're making a good 15 off of you. Okay. And I'm being very liberal with that number 15. But if they're paying you 10, they're making more money than you're making. So you're making them richer. Okay. Because every hour you work, that's an hour of labor that they're getting. Okay. They would make more money off of you. That's how jobs work. So education is not going to repair anything. What is education going to repair? Everybody can get an education. We got black doctors, black engineers, black this, black that, black people in government, everywhere. Education is not going to change anything. That's not going to decrease or change the racial wealth gap. Talking about some damn education. And shout out to the brother, Daryl James. Shout out to brother Daryl James for that, because he was on him. He was like, no. Everybody can get educated. What are you talking about? Daryl James wasn't letting that. Shout out to that brother. I want to get to what our brother sent me through the DMs real quick. Let me check that out. Hold on. When he sent that to me, hold on. Or he tagged me. He tagged me in that. Let me see. I thought I did. Oh yeah, I do have it. All right. Okay. Here we go. Y'all check this out. Okay, hold on.
Story here at 6 o'clock. The office of Governor Gavin Newsom providing some clarification tonight after his team issued a statement that led some to conclude that he is opposed to cash payments as a form of reparation.
Now, I want you guys to know, I have not seen this video. This is a new video to me. I haven't seen it before.
For descendants of Black American slaves. Our Capitol correspondent payments as a form of reparations for descendants of Black American slaves. Our Capitol correspondent Aton Wallace joins us with that and how members of the California Reparations Task Force are responding.
Well, the governor's spokesperson says some people were too quick to conclude just where the governor stands on cash payments. And now his office stresses it could be quite some time until he makes a final decision on this matter at all.
The reparations.
It's been just days since the California Reparations Task Force voted in favor of this 500-page document filled with recommendations for the legislature and governor to consider over how reparations should work for descendants of Black slaves and those in the Black community who've experienced racism and wrongs.
No. See, that's no. This is not for that. You notice how fast they slipped that in? He slipped that in very quickly. He says, for the descendants of Black people who were enslaved and for the Black community who's experienced racism and wrong. No, ain't no and. If you're not FBA, that's just it. And this isn't, mind you, this isn't to say that I don't care about the racism that other people have faced. This isn't to say that I don't care. You don't get to be a part of our reparations for that. No, this isn't about everybody who's been done wrong, everybody who's faced racism, reparations. This is not what that is.
While the task force did not come to a conclusion over how much reparations could cost the state as a whole, the recommendation report calls on the legislature to consider what are described as down payments to go to descendants of anyone who was a Black American slave, as well as those in the Black community whose ancestors arrived before 1900. If descendants meet a certain criteria for the wrongs they've endured, coupled with the amount of time they've lived in California, they could be eligible for up to $1.2 million. But overnight, Governor Gavin Newsom's chief communications advisor, Anthony York, issued a statement that some felt could indicate the governor does not support cash payouts as a form of reparations. Per the statement, reparations are, quote, about much more than cash payments. Many of the recommendations put forward by the task force are critical action items we've already been hard at work addressing, breaking down barriers to vote, bolstering resources to address hate, enacting sweeping law enforcement and justice reforms to build trust and safety, strengthening economic mobility, all while investing billions to root out disparities and improve equity in housing, education, healthcare, and well beyond. This work must continue.
Yeah, see, what I tell you, there's no white guilt. There is no such thing. White people don't feel guilty for a damn thing, okay? Because now that reparations is really starting to get real, now that it's about to be finalized, now it's about to be a point where it's coming up soon, where reparations is going to be a bill that's put on somebody's table and they just need to sign it, and bam, we got it. It's coming to that point now. Now you're seeing a whole bunch of these quote unquote white supporters, these white liberals, these people now like Gavin Newsom. Now he's backing out. Now he was talking about he was in support of reparations, right? Now he's talking about, oh, it's more than cash payments. Now, mind you, this isn't saying that he disagrees with that. So let's be very clear. This isn't saying, he didn't say he disagrees with cash payments. But he's trying to say, oh, well, we got to, well, reparations, let's talk about health care and housing.
During a phone call with York, he provided clarification, noting Newsom is not ruling anything out at this time, adding the governor wants to wait for the report in its entirety to arrive on his desk before he makes any decision. The matter, per York, will only be resolved after Newsom meets with legislative leaders in the coming months, if not longer. Gardena Senator Steve Bradford is a member of the Reparations Task Force and vice chair of the Legislative Black Caucus.
As far as the governor's statement, I think he's setting a realistic expectation that there probably won't be check payments in the tune of, or the amount that we've all heard bannered around for the last 2 years.
Okay, this coon, this damn Sambo right here. What does Jason Black say? Come on, we all know. I see it. Come on, I want to see it in the chat room. What is Jason Black's thing? Look at this guy. Come on now. You got to watch out for these old niggas. All right. This dude saying, oh, I feel like he's just being realistic with his standards, and I don't think we will see a cash payment. No, we will see a cash payment, and we not taking a damn thing else. We gonna see a damn cash payment. They didn't say that about the damn Japanese, about the Native Americans, about the Israel. They didn't say that about Ukraine. They're not saying that about nobody else. It's just I don't think it's that realistic to talk about cash payments.
Since we started this process, again, I've tried to temper people's expectations that it might not
temper nobody's damn expectations. Don't do that.
Be a check. And at many of the hearings, people say, where's my check? I mean, again, if you understand the original commitment, it was 40 acres and a mule.
No, see, this is what I'm telling you guys. I'm telling you guys this. Let's take this down. Let's take this back, right? Okay. If we, and I'm gonna finish playing it. If we study Dr. Claude Anderson, he talks about this often, all right? If you guys have read the book Powernomics, it's a good book. It's on Amazon. It's not that expensive. You guys should definitely read it, right? he talks about how he says it was 40 acres, a mule, and $100, really. And he says that was the bare minimum when I don't know why I keep forgetting the general's name, who was in charge of the Union at that time, who met with the black leaders at that time around the years of the Civil War. This was during the Civil War. And he met and said, okay, black people, pretty much, what do you want? And the black leaders, they all sat and had a meeting and say, okay, after slavery ends, we are going to need 40 acres each and a mule. And then he says $100. That's what Dr. Clyde Anderson says. But let's say 40 acres and a mule. That Ulysses Grant, thank you. Ulysses Grant, thank you, LD. That was the bare minimum for black people to be equivalent, for us to have for us to be competitive to the whites in that time, at that time, because they had so much of a head start. That wasn't necessarily reparations for all of the things that happened. That was just a bare minimum for freeing us, to say, okay, you're going to free us. This is what we're going to need. That was the 40 acres and the mule. That was payment for black people helping to defeat the Confederacy, because this was the deal was made right around the time that the Civil War was ending, right around the time, once the Union figured out, okay, we're going to beat the Confederacy is now losing, because remember, in the beginning of the Civil War, the Confederacy was beating the Union. Then the Confederacy started losing when black people started to join the Union. So after the time when the battle, the whole war started to change over, and the ties were on the side of the Union, that's when Grant was all like, okay, well, we're going to meet with them. We're going to talk about what's going to happen afterwards. And then that's when the Black Society, or the leaders or representatives, pretty much, that's when they were all like, okay, well, we're going to need 40 acres and a mule after that. And y'all leave us alone. Give us 40 acres and a mule. Y'all leave us alone. We're going to do our thing. And they wound up taking that back. All right. Now we're talking about every single thing that they built up. All of the wealth that was built from us needs to be paid back. All of it needs to be paid back. All right. Do you know Chase Bank was founded off of slavery? Okay, not just Chase Bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, a whole lot of these hospitals that get their foundation off of slavery, a whole lot of these insurance companies, a whole lot of these businesses that got their foundation off of slavery. Professor Black Truth did a great series on all of that, talking about Wall Street getting their foundation off of slavery. All of that stuff that they've built generations and generations off of slavery, they need to pay now. Now it's time for them to pay. This is way beyond 40 acres and a mule, which they still need to pay for. I'm not trying to belittle that, but this is way beyond 40 acres and a mule. That's one of the talking points you'll see right there. They'll talk about it was Sherman. Oh, did I say Grant? I said Grant, right? It was that's the name. I thought it was the name. Okay, Sherman. Thank you for that. Yeah, with Special Order number 15, it was way more than that. And if we're going to talk about Special Order 15, we're going to talk about the 40 acres and the mule. You're not just going to have to pay for the 40 acres in the mule. You also have to compensate for all of the money that could have been made with the 40 acres and a mule. Because it was not just 40 acres and a mule of random land. The land had to be fertile for people to grow plants and for people to farm on. So all of the money that could have been made with the 40 acres and a mule, not just the amount that 40 acres is worth and what a mule is worth, but the amount of money that could have been made, the potential money that was lost from the 40 acres and a mule, on top of all of the other generational things and industries that you guys have built off of slavery. Okay, we talked about this before. America was providing most of the world's cotton at a point in time. So this is way beyond 40 acres and a mule. Okay. Let's continue.
So it was never about money.
He points out the
He
recommendations
says
report
it was never about money. Well, the 40 acres, yeah, dude, that dude, you gotta watch out for them old niggas.
includes more than just proposed payments. It also demands an apology from the state of California for what the report labels as racist historic wrongs. Still, if payments are considered, fellow task force member Dr. Amos C. Brown addressed concerns that California would not be able to afford it.
No.
That's coon ass Anus Brown.
Good reason for them to come up with the excuse. Oh, we have a deficit. We're not asking for any handout. We're asking for a hand up and correcting that evil that was done.
And the final reparations recommendation task force report must get to the legislature and the governor no later than the July 1st deadline. Reporting at the state capitol, Aton Wallace, 7.
All right. Okay, cool. And shout out to ACAB Devil for sending that to me. I appreciate you. Or tagging me in that. Appreciate you. There's a lot of bad faith arguments. It's a lot of arguments. Okay, well, who does get reparations? Like the other lady. Oh, Haitians. Why can't we get none? Like the lady before her, the Haitian tether who was there. I got a problem with reparations. Why can't I get none? Those other people. Well, my great-great-grandmother was descendant. So technically, I did my genealogy. I am 3.5% FBA. You're going to have a whole lot of 2% FBAs coming up. All right. The $5 FBAs are already lining up already. Now you're talking about reparations is not about money. 40 acres and a mule wasn't about money. No, 40 acres and a mule was about, giving black people a base to stand on, an economic base to stand on so they can build their own society that was stripped away from them. It was completely stolen from them. It was their right and it was taken from them. Yes. Haitians got billions since the earth. Yeah, they did. If Haitians want some money, they can go to France. And to be honest, I wouldn't hate on them for it. I would support them going to France and them getting reparations. I would have nothing but support for that. And that's the thing. As Foundation Black Americans, we're not hating on other groups of people for getting reparations. We don't have that hate for we don't have that jealousy. We don't have that for them. If they were, we would be in support of that. Out there trying to help them out, getting that, to be honest. Or at least we would have, but now we've sent up there focused on ourselves. But we don't have that. We don't have that. Would anybody else get reparations? Anybody else get anything? And everybody else has gotten something, but anybody else getting anything? You don't see Foundation Black America sitting up there like, why can't I get it too? And we're the only ones without. We're the only ones who are subjugated and deprived. We're the main people subjugated, deprived, tortured. We're the main people oppressed in the country and the least people who benefit off of the country that we built. And we're not even jealous of the people who are benefiting before us. And the second we get something without them, they're all like, damn, why they always get something? No. They can be mad. The other guy, the other suspected tether dude he was talking about, it's going to make a lot of people mad. So what? They can be mad. There's going to be a lot of people who don't like black people. They cannot like black people. That is fine. To me, that's fine. That's cool. They don't have to like black people. I don't want them to like black people. This isn't about being liked. Damn being liked. This ain't nothing to do with being liked. I could care less. They already don't like us. They already don't. So I could care less. So I really could care less. I don't care if they do or don't. They don't, but I really don't care either way. The hell? Brothers and sisters, I appreciate. I forgot to put this up the whole time. Anyway, please subscribe, like, and comment. Please make sure y'all do that. Also, follow me on my various social media pages, which is at Afro Elite on Instagram and at the Afro Elite on Twitter. Please make sure before you guys go, please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. That way, every time I go live or I post a video or anything like that, you guys will know because it will be on your notification bell. All right, and then check back with us too, just in case your notifications don't get out. Just check back frequently. You know what I'm saying? That being said, brothers, let me see. Shout out to, we have our good sister Tia in here. B1 to you, sister. Black Light Revelations. I see you in here. Data Instigator. Oh, I like that name. B1 to you, World's View. B1 to you, sister. And then we have Daniel in here. Panther Strike. B1 to you, and thank you very much again for the super chat. English, Overstreet, PT, the Hula Gang. Okay. Shout out to you, brother. Hurricane IQ. Somali against Pan-Africanism. All right, B1 to you. Iron Will, my good brother. B1 to every single last one of you guys. I'm not going to be able to scroll all the way up, but B1 to every single last one of you guys. I'll be here for a minute scrolling it up, Omega Main, I see you. I see you, brother. B1 to every single last one of y'all. Please make sure you guys subscribe, and you guys have a good one. B1 salute to every single last one of y'all.